You've probably heard someone express the phrase, "That's unconstitutional," or you've heard people champion their constitutional rights. The fact is, however, that many people don't really understand what the U.S. Constitution is, what it says, and how it applies to us in the real world. Today, my goal is to help you, in the simplest terms, understand the U.S. Constitution. I want to break it down for you so that you'll be able to grasp this topic with ease. My name is Dr. Rick Gardiner from Columbus State University, and this is a Muscogee County School District podcast, the U.S. Constitution. The birth certificate of the United States was the Declaration of Independence. Now, a lot of people make the mistake of confusing the Declaration of Independence with the Constitution. The Declaration was written by Thomas Jefferson and published by the Second Continental Congress on July 4th, 1776. That was 11 years before the Constitution was written. The Declaration isn't really all that complicated. Its simple purpose is to say that the United States of America is a new nation, no longer under the British government. But this declaration was little more than just a piece of paper until the United States Army, led by George Washington, forced the British to surrender their control of the American colonies. That surrender occurred at Yorktown, Virginia in 1781. That was the same year that the United States agreed to its first set of rules for running this new nation. That first set of rules was called the Articles of Confederation. It was a rather simple document. It stated that each of the 13 states would get one equal vote on all matters pertaining to the United States of America. The document also implied that the powers of the United States were to be very limited. The state governments would have the power and the authority to do as they pleased. The United States, as a government, was really just a loosely organized alliance, more for the sake of convenience and security than for the purpose of governing the people. But here was the main problem with the Articles of Confederation. It gave the government of the United States no way to enforce any of the decisions that they made. This was a disaster because the American Revolution left a lot of the citizens with the impression that whenever they had a beef with their government, they could rebel, revolt, simply refuse to obey. This feeling was particularly strong among the veterans, the men who served in the Revolution. See, a really delicate issue for these veterans was the matter of taxes. After all, tax protests gave birth to the Great American Revolution. But no government can last long unless it collects taxes from its citizens. Well, in western Massachusetts, a group of veterans of the Revolution began to protest the taxes that were being collected in Massachusetts. They began to challenge the authority of the state and of the national government, the United States of America. This group was led by a fellow named Daniel Shays, a man who fought in the Revolution. He was at Lexington and Concord, Bunker Hill, and Saratoga. We would call him, in most respects, a great American. But Shays and his rebel friends did not respect the new American governments any more than they respected King George and the British government. What could be done about Shays and his rebels? The Articles of Confederation did not include any method of enforcing decisions made by the government. There was no one or no group that was designated to execute the rules. There was a legislative body, the Congress, that was designated to make the laws, but no executive body to enforce the laws. And Shays' rebellion made that problem noticeable. Therefore, in Annapolis, Maryland in 1786, at the invitation of James Madison, 12 leaders in the United States got together to discuss a few problems with the Articles of Confederation. Led by John Dickinson, this group agreed that the problems were major, but their little group of 12 was too small to make big changes. Their conclusion was that a larger convention needed to be called, and so their final resolution was to send out an invitation to all of the states to meet at Philadelphia on the second Monday in May next to take into consideration the situation of the United States. This was a wordy way of saying the Articles of Confederation needed major repair. The next meeting in 1787 was the Constitutional Convention. It was perhaps the most important meeting in the history of the United States. Delegates from every state arrived in Philadelphia, and they met at a very familiar place, the same building where 11 years earlier they declared independence. This was the Pennsylvania State House, today known as Independence Hall. Their first decisions were rather easy for them to make. First, to have a formal meeting, they needed to choose a chairman to run the meeting, to call for votes, and keep order. This was a no-brainer. The man that everyone in the United States respected the most was the delegate from Virginia, General George Washington, the man most responsible for the United States even existing at that time. The only man who had anywhere near the respect that Washington had was Benjamin Franklin, but he was in his 80s, nearly had lost his hearing. As much as everyone honored Franklin, he no longer had the ability to function as well as a younger man such as Washington. George Washington was elected chairman of the Constitutional Convention, but according to traditional rules of the assemblies, the chairman only keeps order and calls for votes. He does not participate in the debates. Therefore, George Washington ran this meeting, but he generally kept quiet during the convention. The other decision that was made early on was whether to try to fix the Articles of Confederation or to just tear them up and start from scratch. Though what they did at that point was technically an act of revolution, the convention agreed that the Articles of Confederation were just too flawed to fix. They agreed to write an entirely new constitution. With those easy decisions made, the rest was uphill. There was little else that these men all agreed upon, and their opinions were so different that if in fact they could all ever agree to what the document should say, it would have to be, as one later historian dubbed it, a miracle in Philadelphia. Okay, now let's just stop and review. We have seen the main reason why the Founding Fathers came together in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1787. The Articles of Confederation, their first constitution, was just too weak. It did not provide the United States government a way of enforcing the rules and the laws that the government made. In our next section, we'll look at other conflicts that the Founding Fathers had when they tried to write this new Constitution, and how they compromised to come together to create that miracle in Philadelphia. My name is Dr. Rick Gardiner from Columbus State University, and this has been a Muscogee County School District podcast. U.S. Constitution.